The first adjustment is to make sure that the blade is in a 90-degree angle with the clamp. And therefore, we use our little angle, lift up the saw bit, and see if that is actually 90 degrees. And I think in this case it really is. If it's not, then you have to make a few adjustments. Adjusting the angle of the blade is done by unlocking this bolt and then turning this whole unit a bit left or right until you have the right angle. But before you do so, you have to make sure that the blade is caught in between those two rollers. These are actually bearings and they should be pushing against the blade left and right. And on the top you have another roller. That's the roller that should actually lean onto the blade so the blade can't go up. Right, so I'm going to unlock this, and there we go. Now, see how I can move this sideways? And this is how you have to do it. I can also move it up and down a bit. And now I can move it left or right, and you can see how the blade is moving. Adjusting the blade is easy. All you need to do is lower the saw, unplug it first, of course, out of the mains. You don't want it to start while you're working on it. And put your angle up, make sure it's straight, and then tighten up. Move around the blade a bit, the guides, and then tighten this up. And that's all it takes. There we go. And then double check it to see if everything is all right, and it is. The actual gearbox is underneath this cover, and you can undo the bolts, take off the lid, and then you can drain out the oil, and then fill it back up until the bottom line, and you can actually see it in the manual how far that is. I am not going to remove this right now because this is fresh oil and I don't want to have it replaced right now, but this is how you do it. This is very seldom, it's already been pre-filled in the factory, so you don't have to do much on that. But maybe once a year or so, if you cut a lot of metal, you might have to do this. The next thing you might want to do is to change the speed of the saw. Therefore, you will have to undo this screw, open up the pulley box, and then change the belt position. Now, the belt is already under tension, so you have to release that tension, and that is that bolt right there and the counter nut that you have to undo, and then you can actually slacken up the belt and take it off and put it a pulley higher. So let's do that. There is an Allen key that comes with the saw, so just stick it in there and turn it loose. That will slacken up the tension on the belt. See, you can now move the whole thing. So if I now push the motor a bit inwards, you can see how it moves, and I should be able to remove that pulley. And I'm just going to stick it a step higher. So now I'm selecting a much higher speed. This is the maximum speed. So now we need to adjust the tension on the belt, and that you do with the hexagon bolt that we just released. So we're going to tighten that up, but not too tight. And you need to feel this a bit. Yeah, that feels about right. I'm just going to give it a little bit more. If it's too loose, it will slip. Just a little bit more. And this is about right. You know, you should be able still to squeeze it. And that's done. So I'm going to release it again, and I'm going to put the belt back where it was, because that's kind of the middle speed. This would be the speed for cutting brass and soft materials. The next thing we're going to check is the tracking of the saw blade on the wheels, and therefore you need to take off the cover. Alright, so now I can take the panel off, and we see the running wheels of the saw. These are the running wheels, and so is that one. And tracking is very important. And tracking means that the backside of the blade is touching just the rim on that wheel. You can see that rim there, and that's what you may have to adjust. So I'm going to spin it up so you can actually see it, but be very careful with this because that can be dangerous. So keep an eye on that. Also make sure that the teeth are not onto the wheel itself. And here you can see it's just on the edge, and that's how it should be. And I think tracking looks pretty good. So there's no need to replace it because we've got really nice tracks ongoing right there. See that? How that touches the edge? It may not run on the edge though. Adjusting the tracking is done with a hexagon key, delivered with the saw. And then you need to turn it left or right, depending on where the tracking is on the wheel. Have a look on that wheel and make sure that the back side of the blade is against the rim. Not on the rim, but against, as I've shown you before. And of course, before you can adjust the hexagon nut or bolt, you will have to undo this bolt here first. Adjust it, check it on the wheel, and then tighten it up again. I'm not going to do it on this machine right now because I've done it already. And I can't show you both sides anyhow, but this is how you do it. So do it in little steps. Loosen up, adjust, check on the other side, adjust again, tighten up. This is how it works. The next thing is we're going to loosen up the blade tension on the tensioning knob by turning it counterclockwise. We will also remove the guards. We have removed the guards and now we can loosen up the tension, and in fact now the blade should just come off like so. This side on the rollers, you just play with it a bit and it will come off. That's how easy it is. So now let's assume this isn't the new blade. It is not. It's the same blade. Just play with it. We got it in there between the rollers. We got it in here. That's easy. Roll it around the wheels on both sides. Hold it a bit in place. When you put it on the wheels, make sure that it's not on the rim itself because that is not good. The last thing you want is that the blade is going to slip on the wheel. So we tighten that up. All right. So all that is in now. So before I put the guards up, I'm going to spin it up and see if the blade is nicely against the rim of the wheels. So in other words, if the tracking is correct. And it looks like the tracking is pretty good. So I'm happy about that. So let me double check. And yes, the tracking is really good. So I can stop it. Don't forget to unplug it. And now we can finish it all up by putting the guards back up and maybe tighten it a bit more. It might be that you may have to change the tracking a little bit depending on the blade you put up. I don't know why they call these finger guards, because they're not going to help much for your fingers. So now all we need to do is to put back the protective shield and we are done. So folks, we've come to the end of this video. You've seen on how we assembled the unit. We also seen on how we use it, and we've seen on how you can maintain it, how you can change the saw blade and all these different things. Overall, I think this is a pretty good machine. It took me just a little bit of time to get used to it, but once I got used to it, I knew exactly how to use it. So I'm quite happy with this. It seems to cut quite nicely. There's a few things to remember. You might want to grease certain things, and also the front clamp. This one here, you might want to move it to the other side because it's on the left hand side when you get it, and then you can't cut up to 60 degrees. So I moved it to the left, and it's built for that, so you can do all this. And for the rest, this is a pretty good buy. So hopefully I see you again in one of my next reviews of ToolMania tools.